Well, thank you all. We have a few minutes. If you'd like to ask Mr. Damolin or Ms. Saxonov any questions, I'm sure they would be happy to answer. Or to entertain comments.
Extra credit for remaining student.
Hi, I'm curious. From in the first film, there was a comment about how history is being taught now in Russia about the history of gulags. Do you have any sense, as a kind of a follow-up from your film or the memoirs written by Ginzburg, how has that changed at all? Do you think it's improved the way that this particular history is being taught?
As far as I know, and I have contact to a Moscow teacher of German language. She was translating some things I wrote for Russian newspapers some years ago. And she's always telling me about the new development in the schools, the curricula. And there's a change. There's a change in that way that the Stalinistic era is described a little more mildly. Not, it is said, yeah, there was something going wrong and so on and so on, but they try not to point out too much the bad things. Gulag is not more a subject, not much. So the teachers I speak in Moscow when I'm there, they always tell me, oh, there's a real change in the school system, in the curricula. In the way, in more so-called patriotic education. And patriotism doesn't work with murder. This is the consequence. Yes.
I have this feeling from your films, from these two, that you're very interested in the search for truth.
Yes and no. Someone asked me sometimes, in further times, why are you going for journalism? And I didn't say, I want to go for the truth. I said, I want to go behind the lie.
Could you expand on that?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
You know, there's the word by Bertolt Brecht, and he said once, the lie is getting more invisible the bigger she grows. And this situation we have in our countries. Also, we have it in Germany. We have, especially in the former socialistic states, in Russia. Once I had an interview with a dissident painter, Boris Berger, and he said, "I will never go back to Russia because this is the country of the lie." And my motivation always is to go behind the lie. There's so much spoken. There's such a big babble about this and that. And my duty and my work is to ask strange and stupid questions and to research the history of things and go behind the things. This is what I think good journalism or good researching and investigation is. And I will not say that I will tell you the truth. I only can give you the material to judge okay, what was this? And is this a true story or not? And so the lie is, to me, more important than the truth.
Just a small technical question, but I kept noticing that in the first film there were a lot of aerial shots, and I was wondering how that was done given the very rustic conditions and how, you know, sort of tight and limited everything seemed to be on the ground.
I'm not sure that I understand this question.
There were a lot of shots from the air, seemingly at least.
These flight pictures.
Yeah, and I was just curious about how you did that technically.
That was by chance when we've been in the region of Jagodnoye, this former Dalstroy administration center. We met a group of Russian film people from Moscow. And they had a drone with them. And you know, this is really, that was really a rare situation, because we've been at the end of the world, and suddenly there came some people around the corner and had a drone with a camera on it. And so I jumped on that really from the first second, and I said, okay, I want this material if you can give it to me. And so I got the license for this film, and that was only by chance, you know.
The nature in Coloma seemed really beautiful, but also very scary. So what shocked you the most about seeing Coloma in real life?
The thing in the Coloma is all the buildings, or most of the buildings there, were made from wood. And now in the last 60, 70 years, the whole infrastructure is broke down. You know, the problem was in these shootings, we didn't have such a homogeneous area where we could see there's a wall, there's a tower, and so on and so on. Everything is destroyed. And this is the first thing. The other thing is that the landscape is really beautiful. And these beautiful landscapes, that's why I put these pictures into this, because on my opinion, this is the contradiction between beautiness and death and murder. And I wanted to show these pictures because the people who see this film, they shall imagine, okay, I have a really nice landscape, and in this landscape, tens of thousands of people were murdered by labor. And it was not shocking me to see all these places, because it looks so harmful. It's not dangerous. You go there, you see a little bit of ruins and so on, like you go everywhere in the world, in regions where the people left into the cities also. It is not. It's not a threat in a way. It's not. It is strange, because you are there, and in your mind, in your fantasy, it starts to work, because the pictures you saw before in newspapers and so on, it's coming into your inner eye, and this is the most threatening things, that you suddenly find out. Yeah, maybe I could make some vacation here, but it's a terrible region. No, I don't want to go there. So this is a contradiction of the moment when you see it. Yeah. There was no threat to me. It was this ambivalence. of beautiness and death.
So in the second film, you captured a story of Veronica. It's one single person, right? And you said that you spent 19 years on the film to capture her story. I was just wondering, how does like spending 19 years on capturing the story of one woman, unfortunately a lot of people will argue that, and sort of insignificant woman, how does that enrich your life, and how do you think that storytelling can sort of change the perception of others?
It's a long story. I try to make it short. When I started to deal with this subject, I didn't know that Veronica exists. That was in 1980, 1979, 1980, and I was working in a journal in my city, Heidelberg, a little journal, and we got the information that in the psychiatric center near Heidelberg, there should be 170 so-called Russians in a special department, really secretly kept. And we as young people, we thought, okay, we're going behind this fact or this information, and we found out that it's true. There were Russians, but there were not only Russians. There were people from Poland, from Ukraine, from Baltic states. There were people from Russia, and they all were prisoners of war or forced laborers who get set free at the end of the Second World War. And you have to imagine, by example, in the region where I live, suddenly 25,000 forced laborers get free. They were on the street, they didn't know what to do, and it was a difficult situation. And I can imagine that some persons get depressed or have psychological problems, and then they were put in this mental hospital, and we published this 1980, and the whole media in Germany swapped in our one-room editing office, and it was published in all newspapers, in the radio, and so on, and it was a scandal. The Russian embassy was calling, what? Russians in the psychiatric center? So what is going on here? Are they kept as prisoners or something? And that longed for some 2 years. There were politicians who were intervening and so on, and the case got lost after 2 or 3 years. Like, you know, the media are forgetting often things. And in 94, 14 years later, I was making my first films at 1990, about this time. I said, okay, I want to look what's happened with this case. And I found out there are still 33 patients from Eastern Europe held as patients with the diagnosis schizophrenia in Wiesloch. And then I decided to make a film together with one of these forced laborers, an Ukrainian man, the only one who was speaking a little bit German. All the others didn't speak German. And I made this film against the will of the managing director in a way, but he was, at the end, he was satisfied with that film, and yeah, that was the second step. And the third step happened when 2004. Someone called me because he knew I was making the first film in 1994. And he told me, there's a strange thing going on. There is a research from the International Red Cross on a woman called Svilans. And he said to me, look for this. And then I started to research and to make my investigations. And this story, the story to this film is 24 years. That means it's, to my work, it's very important not to leave the subjects you've done in the past. It's gone. It's always with me. It's always to reactivate. And the thing is, these two films show very directly that you will succeed sometimes if you insist in subjects. You have to insist and not to give up and not to say, okay, the media are wanting now sex and crime, so I do films about sex and crime or something. So you have your subjects, and these are my subjects. These two. This is a very important part of my work.
Can you tell us something about your current project?
This is also a very long-term project. In 1995, I was in Romania with my former partner. He died later, very early. And we made a documentary about Western hunters in the hunting grounds of Ceausescu and Zhivkov in Romania and Bulgaria. That was the time when Ceausescu was dead, Zhivkov was out of sight, and the hunting grounds with bears, with big deer and so on, it was really now took over by the so-called hunting nomenclatura in the Eastern Europe. The former helpers of Ceausescu took over the business, and they invited the Western hunters, namely Italians, French hunters and German hunters. And we were interested in these things because we met sometimes a man who was producing hunting weapons, and he gave us some connections, and we made this film. And while we were shooting in the Carpet Mountains, in a village, in a poor village, we met a young man, 23 years old, Joschka. He had an accident with a bear 6 years ago, and he was attacked by the bear, and the half of the face was biting. The bear was biting in half of the face and putting the bones out and so. And he was looking terribly like a monster, and he got operated in Romania and Hungary. I think it was 62 times he was operated. But in these years, these two countries were not the capital of plastic chirurgy. They used him as an object for practice and for rehearsing and so. And we showed this film with this man. We presented him as a victim, a late victim of Ceausescu, because Ceausescu was breeding bears in the Carpet Mountains in special regions that he had the chance to shoot them. He was totally maniac. And the population was so big that the bears were coming into the villages because they didn't have enough food. And therefore, there were a lot of accidents like this, but this one was one of the most extraordinary. And we showed this film in the main program, the national program, and hundreds of people were calling us, telling us, please collect money. We want that this guy should be operated again, but in Germany, specialists and so on. And we collected 130,000 Deutschmarks at that time. And we engaged the doctor to a hospital in Regensburg, and we put him in 6 operating sessions from the Carpet village into the rich and nice town Regensburg. And this process I took as a chance to describe what will happen if such a man from a very poor region is coming into this glittering world of consume. What will happen there? And I made a documentary on that, and this documentary was finished in '98. And from '98 on, I visited each year Romania, and I always took a camera with me, or a camera team. And so I have material now for 20 years. We started in '95, and in February this year was the last time there, and we made some interviews again, following his life, what he's thinking, what his family thinking, and it's not going into a good future with his family, and the material is complete, and I will try to start the editing at New Year, and I will be ready in March maybe. And this will be a pure documentary film without commentary, and I will have especially composed music for that. A friend of mine will do this, and this will be a film with a total another, how should I say, atmosphere. And this is a 20-year project. I like the difficult things.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Mario Damolin.
Okay, thank you.